Good afternoon, people. It's light outside. The sun is shining. The sun is shining on Liverpool. It's been a long winter, autumn, spring, Lewis. But finally, we can see some light at the end of the tunnel. But it's funnily enough, we were having a bit of a conversation yesterday. We were exchanging some messages. I think it was around about this time, wasn't it? I sent you a little cheeky text saying, "Are you teasing us about some contracts?" And I won't say what you replied on air, but after 3-4 hours, a lot of journalists, including yourself, who was, to your credit, the first one out there to break some news. Then I start bashing your line, saying when you come on the show, but you weren't answering because you were absolutely manic. But I managed to get you, and you were kind enough to come on today. But it's a big welcome back to BNR once again for you, mate. How are we doing? You found some time for the gym. How did you manage that?
I needed to, mate. I needed to do something that wasn't looking at my laptop screen and texting about Mo Salah, because honestly, there's only so many times you can write the word Salah before you look at it and you start to think you've spelt it wrong or something, because it's just it's been a mad 24 hours, as you say. Like, it was, the noise all week has been that it's done or it's nearly done. And I sort of dropped a little, it wasn't actually on purpose, a little teaser in about midday in my column thing. It was just saying, that all the noises that Salah's going to skip Egypt's June international break because he wants to rest his body and be fit for next season at Liverpool. And on the end of that story, or that little bit of the column, there was a bit saying there is an anticipation that this is now going to be wrapped up very soon. But one of the lads that works at our place said, "Well, hang on a minute, isn't this a massive story? Shouldn't you do that as a separate story?" So he took the bit off about the contract being nearly done, and he said, "Do this as a separate story later. You've got to do this, whatever." One of my editors. So I thought, right, okay, let's go for it. And even though I was 95% at that point yesterday, I was still like, I don't want to put my neck on the line with this and say it's done in case it comes back to bite me. So I spent all afternoon talking to people both in England and Egypt and everywhere around the world, really, just to be like, what have you heard on this? Like, people that know the situation well, people that know Mo Salah and his family and his friends over in Egypt as well. And the message that came back from literally everyone was, it's done. Most people sort of added to that 2-year deal. I wasn't 100% on the contract, but it does look like it will be a 2-year deal. So nothing's signed yet on both counts with Van Dijk as well. No one's put pen to paper officially yet, but all the noise is that it is done now. And I think, to be fair, most people have expected that to happen, but there has always been that niggling worry that what if they don't sign? But I think now we can say with a high degree of certainty that Salah and Van Dijk are sticking around.
Good stuff, sticking around. But why now, Lewis? We were having a bit of a discussion on one of our shows last night, and we were talking about this. There was a certain pot, and there still is a pot around. How deep? We obviously know how we run as a football club, self-sustainable and all that sort of stuff. But was it a case of Liverpool got a no? And I know you're probably not going to say there is no guarantee that Trent leaves, and I can understand that as well. But again, all the messages that we've been received from Liverpool and what's been coming out of the papers and the social media, and it's just a general narrative that's running with Trent at the moment, and then how confident Real Madrid have been as well. So Liverpool fans are expecting Trent to leave. Was it a case of Liverpool getting an official no from Trent, and then they thought, okay, fine, we need to tie these up too because we've got an extra amount of cash, if you see what I mean?
Yeah. As far as I'm aware, Trent hasn't officially told Liverpool that he's going at the end of the season.
Okay.
Most of the Trent stuff is driven from the Madrid side, in that they are confident of getting him. And it does look like that will happen. Similar to Salah and Van Dijk, staying up is probably the same percentage on Trent to Real, or maybe a bit less. But it does feel like he will end up there. And I think most people have accepted that now. whether that means that Richard Hughes and Michael Edwards have suddenly thought, well, we've got a pot of money here, let's go and put it on Van Dijk and Salah. I don't know. That is it's a theory that could be the case, but I think for a long time now, Liverpool have been trying to tie these players down to these new contracts, and it's just been a bit of a drawn out process. But certainly from the outside, it's been a bit of a panic. But the word I get from inside the building is that they were never really too panicked about these situations. They always thought that these two would sign on. I think Van Dijk was always seen as the more the easier one to do in terms of extending, and you obviously had Salah putting pressure on the club with what he said in the media. He spoke to me and a couple of the other journalists at, I think it was
Southampton. Yeah.
I always get Southampton and Bournemouth mixed up, but yeah, it was Southampton. And then he's been on Sky after a few games and sort of, spoke about his contract. That was obviously, I think it's fair to say, a bit of, come on, lads, sort this out, a bit of a pressure move from Salah. But I think there's always been an expectation that they will find an agreement. The first offers came in around January in terms of here's what we will be offering you. And I think obviously the players' camps both did a bit of haggling. They've got deals that they want now. So, yeah, I don't know whether it's a case of Trent's gone, there's an extra pot of money, but I do think just based on both of their seasons, Salah obviously tailed off in the last 2 or 3 weeks, but overall has been the best player in the league. Van Dijk's been the best defender in the league. So I think the fact that they've proved themselves for the whole season nearly now has basically made Liverpool think, yeah, we'd be absolute fools to get rid of these now.
Any idea of what sort of figures have been brandished about?
Well, there's been a lot of talk that Liverpool were offering them both downgrades on the pay in terms of, saying you're going to have to take a pay cut if you want to stay. From what I understand, that hasn't been the case. So I don't know the exact numbers, but I know they're not offering these lads pay cuts basically.
Okay. In terms of the transfer signings and transfer targets this summer, then what now? This was target number 1. Although, again, we've talked about Trent. Let's say worst case scenario, Trent leaves, Mohamed Salah stays, and with Virgil van Dijk, as it's most likely to be confirmed, hopefully in the next week or so, or maybe even sooner. You never know. What now? Where do the priorities lie for Liverpool come this summer, Lewis?
Yeah, it's quite a big question, that, because there are a lot of different moving parts. But I think the main priority was getting these contracts sorted. Now, as I said earlier, they're not 100% sorted yet, but they are heading that direction. In terms of the official announcement, I wouldn't be surprised if it's still a few weeks away. Maybe that it's one for they wait until the title's wrapped up before they announce anything. Can't really see anything being announced imminently, but we'll see on that. As for the summer, I think, well, if Trent goes, it's whether they want to buy right back or not. I think they do really like Conor Bradley, but it seems like left back seems to be more the one that's getting banded around for the priority signing this summer. Obviously, Robertson has not been at his best this season, I think it's fair to say, although he has maybe the fans' reaction to him has maybe been a bit too negative, I think. But yeah, I think Robertson is maybe just slightly getting past his best. So I think left back must be the priority, and obviously everyone knows Milos Kerkez is the main name there. There are some other people that they're weighing up as well, though. Hato,
okay.
One. But it does seem like Kerkez is the main option there. I mean, obviously he's been quite active on social media, hasn't he?
He has.
The fact, I do sort of smell a little bit of a red flag in terms of why is it so public that they want Kerkez. That does make me just slightly worry whether that one is actually as far along as people say it is, but it does seem like he is the main candidate. And then I think they would have to sell Tsimikas for me. I would, get rid of Tsimikas and keep Robbo on as a sort of them Kirkes and Robertson or whoever the signing is can fight for the left back spot. Robertson, obviously, even if he's not playing, really good leader in the dressing room. You see in every video that Liverpool Robbo's always front and centre of him. So he's like really big member of the dressing room, really big leader. So that's left back. And then I think they will maybe try and sign a centre half as well again. So obviously they've what have they done? Obviously extended Van Dijk, but this time next year they might have the exact same problem with Konate with his contract running out in the end of next season. And
is there any progress regarding Konate, Lewis? I was going to come on to that, but since you mention it, let's do Konate. Any progress regarding Konate? We had him obviously with that very open press conference. I don't know if you were there, but it was probably the last time we see Ibu in front of a camera and sat on the table before a game. But he was very honest.
And quite nice that he's honest, I think. But no progress at the moment, as far as I'm aware. So talks.
So no counter offer from Liverpool.
Not as far as I'm aware yet. I think Konate, they obviously opened talks around when would it have been? Maybe just before Christmas. I can't remember. I can't remember. I remember being in a pub when they opened talks. I got a text, but I can't remember when it was. That's all I can remember, which probably says a lot. So yeah, if it was around autumn maybe that they opened talks with Konate, and I think the two parties are still a little bit far apart on what they want in the demands, but there's time on that. I think obviously, as I said, the priority was the big three. So now when they are officially sorted, then they can put more of a priority into Konate. But I do think a defender, because even though Van Dijk has signed on, I think this will be his last contract extension because he'll be 34 in July. So if he signs a 2-year deal, he'll be nearly 36 by the time that's up. So reading between the lines, you have to say maybe 2 more years of Van Dijk, and then they do need to find that long-term replacement. So I do think a defender will be on the agenda. Obviously, there's Joe Gomez, who's hardly played this season, had a bad year really with injury, so maybe he would be one to potentially move on. So
we did try to get Euro in this last summer as well, and even Real Madrid were at the table as well. He ended up at Man United, as we know. But do you think it'll be a case of one in, one out? The fans want a centre back regardless, Lewis, because Van Dijk and Konate are a brilliant partnership. We've got a security in terms of Van Dijk, but we don't want a 34-year-old playing every week, for the next 2 years. It's just not sustainable, as much as it doesn't look as a human being at times in the case of Van Dijk. But Konate's got a question mark against his fitness. Joe Gomez has got a question mark. And then Kwanzaa's probably got a question mark, not in terms of fitness, but does the manager trust him? So Liverpool fans, regardless of who comes in the other areas, want a centre back coming in. But I've just got a feeling, I don't know what you think about the centre back area, where one of them might leave and we might bring in. That would mean we need two, but I don't think that's going to happen. But what are your general thoughts around the centre back area?
I think they'll definitely target one. Whether they'll definitely sign one is a different question. Similar to midfield last summer, if you remember, they obviously had that pop at Zubimendi, didn't work out, and then they just sacked it off and didn't get anyone. So we could see a similar situation here.
Yeah.
Obviously I've said this before, but I think it will be a big summer in terms of incomings and outgoings. I think I would not be surprised at all if it's like 5 in, 5 out, maybe even 6. But let's see. Maybe that's wishful thinking a little bit. But I do think it will be a big summer. I think left backs are definite, centre backs, and I think they'll definitely strengthen the forward line, and then maybe midfielder as well.
Okay. Huijsen is a name that we've heard Liverpool have been linked with. Any other names that you can tell us about that Liverpool are monitoring?
Well, Huijsen does seem to be the one that comes up the most, but I would say on that is that Real Madrid are also in the market, and when Real Madrid are in the market, you tend to lose. So, and I follow his dad on Instagram, and he's always posting pictures of Real Madrid stuff.
Oh, is he?
So I would strongly think that he might go there. One that's been mentioned a couple of times is Gay at Palace, but only really briefly mentioned. I don't know if there's too much in that or not. So yeah, it's probably too early days to say on the centre backs. I think, a lot depends on what happens in terms of can they sort Konaté's long-term future out as well, obviously. But I do think if I was Liverpool, I would maybe move I'll probably move on Gomez as harsh as that sounds, as the longest-serving player, but I'm sure he would want to go and play every week as well. So move out Gomez and sign a new centre half. That's what I would do anyway.
Lewis, going back to the right back area, I know what you said about Liverpool do really like Conor Bradley. I think the fans really like Conor Bradley, but there is a concern again if he can go throughout a season without getting injured. His game is very intense. He likes to tackle, and I know it's a small sample size, but he has had a lot of injuries where he comes, plays well, gets injured, and then takes a while to come back again. And it's a struggle to get the rhythm back. If Trent leaves, then there is a concern that Liverpool might not get a replacement right back. Is that a possibility, or do you think Liverpool will definitely bring someone, whether that's an established right back for 30-40 million pounds, or even someone around 18, 19 years old, and who can sort of play second fiddle to Conor Bradley, if you like?
It's an interesting question. I haven't really heard too much on the right back front in terms of incomings, which is a bit weird considering everyone does seem to accept that Trent is leaving.
Yeah.
So maybe that is just something to consider. I do think that they do see Conor Bradley as like, this is your time now, go and prove yourself. But as you say, Conor's injury record is not great. I mean, he seems to get 2 or 3 every season.
Yeah.
Which are, just a month here and there, and they do set him back a bit. So I don't know if I'd feel comfortable going into a season with just Bradley as the only proper right back, because Quansah and Gomez are not proper right back. So whether slots he's Curtis Jones is a more, he's obviously played the last 2 games there. I thought one of them he played really well, the other one not so well. So whether that's a long-term thing, I don't know. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk about Frimpong as well at Leverkusen, but as far as I'm aware, there's nothing in that at the moment. But Frimpong will definitely be on the move this summer, I think. So I still think Liverpool could be in the mix, but there's no talks on the go at the moment. So one to maybe keep an eye on, but not one that anything's massively happening at the moment with Frimpong.
Okay. I like the way we're going down, to teams. So we reached the midfield. We've done the back line. The DM, I know you mentioned Liverpool scrapped that off because of the Zuba chase. Liverpool fans, again, I keep on screaming down the camera. We've seen probably, you mentioned it, Gravenberch has felt a bit of fatigue over the last couple of months. I don't think it's just fatigue. I think Liverpool have been looked at really closely by coaches and managers up and down the country and around the world in the case of the Champions League, and they've made some tweaks regarding how they press and how they come up against Liverpool. And we've seen Newcastle and Everton, really physical sides, get amongst Liverpool, and it's made this discussion come to the table where Liverpool fans think we need a bit of extra physicality. David Ornstein came out last week and he said Liverpool don't see it as a priority. Do you think Liverpool do something in midfield? And I not necessarily mean just a support for Ryan Gravenberch, maybe a number 10. And I know I'm probably covering the whole midfield in one question here, but do you see Liverpool bringing in someone, because whether it's a physicality case in the case of Ryan Gravenberch and providing him a bit of support, the end of the spectrum is giving a bit of Szoboszlai a bit of support in terms of adding a bit of creativity. But how do you see Liverpool, addressing that, area, Lewis, come the summer?
Yeah, so obviously Gravenberch and McAllister basically played every single game this season, apart from a few. here and there. And I do think they are one man short in that midfield. I thought that before this season. And to be fair, I thought it might be one of the things that we looked back on at the end of this season as something that like cost them the league title. Obviously, it hasn't. So Liverpool, maybe not lucky, but you know what I mean in that regard. But I do think they do need to sign an extra body in the midfield. The only interesting sort of curveball I'd throw in there is Bajcetic on loan.
Yeah.
He's doing really well at the moment. And, you know, Slot sort of said last August or whenever he went out on loan, he said this is his chance to prove that he can, you know, play a big role in this team next season. So it wasn't like the future, it was like next season. So
could be a right back, Lewis.
Yeah, you never know. I don't know if he's a bit lightweight, isn't he? I don't know if he's, you know, bulked enough for right back, but we'll see. He's doing well. Spoke to a few people out there who say he's doing really well. So that could be one. I think he'll definitely get a chance at pre-season. I don't know about, I think probably Tyler Morton will probably leave. I think he wanted to leave last summer, but Liverpool wouldn't let him. But yeah. Endo, obviously, a fan's favourite. He's class when he comes off the bench. And he's good to have around, I think. I think there's every reason Liverpool should keep him as a sub to come on and see out those games. But yeah, I do think they should try and sign a midfielder, but I haven't really heard anything to suggest it is a priority at this stage. But we are still very early days, only April, so I think this is one that could develop later in the summer, maybe.
Harvey Elliott's future is, I won't say it's up in the air, but it's been questioned because of the lack of minutes that he's been given this season. Lewis, where do you see his future? Do you see it at Liverpool? He's come out really passionately confirming his love for the club and his desire to stay at the club. But if you're not getting a lot of minutes at the club, and you might have a conversation with the manager, you probably can presume in the summer as to where does my role lie. And the manager has addressed it in press conferences, and he said, look, Szoboszlai doesn't come off because he's a machine. But again, we've seen in the last couple of weeks where a lot of players do look goosed. But it's a lack of legs, a lack of physicality, a concern when it comes to Harvey Elliott. Do you see Liverpool letting him go for the right price and then bringing someone in who's a very similar profile to him?
Yeah, I mean, I think Harvey's quite an interesting one because he doesn't really get any time to prove himself, but every time he does get a few minutes here and there, I think he does quite well. Obviously scored at PSG, got that assist in the Carabao final for Chiesa.
Yeah.
Had some bright moments, I thought, at Fulham, even though it didn't lead to anything. I think he hit the bar, if I remember rightly, or the post or something.
At the bar the weekend, yeah.
That was it, yeah. So I think I'd like to see Harvey just get a few starts between now and the end of the season, because I think Slot can basically say to him, like, listen, lad, go and prove why we should keep you next season. Obviously, every player has their price, and if a club came in with a big bid, then I think Liverpool might think about it. But I do like Harvey because he can also play on the right as well. He can play in the number 10. And he clearly wants to stick around. So I think that, again, he might be given a bit of time to just sort of prove himself a bit. He's obviously had that injury this season, which hasn't helped him. And then maybe he could leave in the summer, but I'd say there's 50-50 on that one.
50-50. What about a kid called Ryan Shirky? Heard anything about him? It's got a trick.
Not really. I mean, only Twitter rumours, really. I've seen people linking him around. Looks a top player, but I've not heard anything to suggest he's coming to Liverpool. But obviously, it's very early days, so maybe I'll do some digging on that one.
You'll see some tricks, I can assure you of that. Let's go to the up top. Darwin Núñez is of the obvious one. A lot of people like yourselves have said he is leaving. He's more or less, it's a given. Darwin Núñez leaves the club. You mentioned Hugo Ekitike is a name that keeps popping up when you speak to people regarding that position. Heard any other names?
Cunha, maybe.
Okay.
So my info on Cunha is that he's got his release clause of 62.5 mil off the top of my head, and Wolves are anticipating most of the big six clubs having a try for him. So it would be a case of, do Liverpool want him? And I think that he would be a great signing because he's a bagsman. He knows where the goal is. He's great at his link-up play. He can drop deep if he needs to. He can, go in the half spaces and the channels. I think he'd be a great signing. There's nothing to say that Liverpool are, prioritising Cunha, but it's certainly not been ruled out at this stage. Who else is there? There's been a lot of talk about Liam Delap, but I don't think that is one for Liverpool. I think that he will end up at Chelsea or United.
Okay.
That seems to be the consensus in the industry. Obviously, a lot have mentioned João Pedro as well, but I think there's something fishy about the João Pedro thing, in that keep getting told little things about him that make me think that someone's trying to plant it to drum up some interest. I'm not sure. I don't think Pedro will be one on the list for Liverpool, but we'll have to wait and see. So Ekatike, as I say, a lot of people have mentioned him, and when I've asked people who know things, who might Liverpool look at, a lot of people have just said, just keep an eye on this Ekatike lad. So he could be one to watch out for, definitely. But I do think they will end up signing a striker. The Saudis came in for Núñez in January. Liverpool sort of said, absolutely not. We've got a title to win. We want all our forwards staying around. And although he has been quite poor overall, he has had some big contributions as well. If you think Brentford and a couple of other games.
Yeah.
So he's played his part in this title, and when they go on and win the title, Núñez has played a role, not as big as many people would have hoped for, but he has had his moments. But I do think that, he's been here 3 years now, so I do think he's had his chance to prove himself. And I do think if the Saudis came back with a big offer, and as far as I'm aware, they are still very keen, I think Liverpool would be minded to maybe say, all right, cheers, Darwin. And off he goes. But not a definite on Núñez leaving. I do think it's more likely than not, but not a definite at this stage. Obviously, Diaz's future is slightly up in the air as well.
Does he stay?
Diaz?
Yeah.
50-50 maybe. I would say that one's definitely not as clear-cut as Núñez is. And as I say, Núñez is by no means a definite. I do think Barca are sort of one of the clubs sniffing around Diaz, but there's a little knock-on effect apparently. If Barca go on and sign Nico Williams or someone like that, then obviously they won't afford to be able to do Diaz as well. So I think with Diaz, it's not going to be a case of Liverpool are trying to flog him, but if the money is right, I think they may consider it. I don't know how settled Diaz is in England as well. I'm not saying he's unsettled, but I just wonder whether if an option to go and play in Spain came up, obviously speaks Spanish, and that might appeal to him. I think the Saudis are looking at him as well. So I think the forward line is the most interesting thing to debate for this summer, because a lot of ifs, buts and maybes, but I do think there will be sort of, I think definitely there will be some sort of change up there this summer.
If Diaz leaves, Lewis, what kind of shortlist do you think Liverpool will have for that wide area? Semenyo's a name that is mentioned. Do you think Liverpool likes Semenyo?
Yeah, Semenyo is definitely a possibility. I'm not sure if he is quite at the level for Liverpool. I think he is a very good player, but I'm not sure if he is quite at that level for Liverpool. But it is one to consider. In terms of the other names, it's mainly I think it's just too early days yet. It's a case of when Diaz goes, I think some sort of things may start to become more apparent if Diaz was to go. So I think maybe a centre forward would be more the priority than a left winger. I think Liverpool do really like Cody Gakpo, obviously. So I think he is the first choice left winger going into next season. And then new number 9, Salah on the right. Maybe you'd want more from Chiesa if he seems to be happy at Liverpool, Chiesa. So I think he's another one that needs to prove himself a little bit more, or a lot more, between now and the end of the season, although he has had some nice cameos. And then obviously you've got Ben Doak coming back from his loan.
Yeah.
Will Liverpool cash in on him, because there will be a lot of suitors. There's already a lot of clubs tracking his progress, so he could be one to move on for a decent whack this summer to get the money up. So, I mean, we've pretty much gone through the whole team there, but I think it will be like a sort of a big summer in terms of incomings, but they will be shifting some out as well at the same time.
Just before we wrap up, there has been a talk about Liverpool missing out opportunities, dipping into the sort of markets where in South America, for example, a Brighton type of model, missing out players of, like Baleba, for example. Now, if you want someone like Baleba, you'd have to pay 70, 80 million pounds for him. A name that got linked to us, that Franco Mastantano. I don't know if I butchered that, but seems close enough. He's a 17-year-old kid. Do you think Liverpool will, do these sort of deals where they can sign someone and even put them back to loan, where they make sure they get the next wonder kid in the next couple of years? And if they're really, really good, they'll sign them straight away. But can you see Liverpool, taking advantage of their wide, analytical data come this summer?
Yeah, well, I think obviously when Michael Edwards came back, his big thing was, I want a second club for FSG.
Yeah. And,
as we know, they're in talks with Malaga. Whether that goes through or not, I think that is 50-50, because PSG's owners are also in the hunt for Malaga. But I think once they've got that second club, if you look at Brighton, for example, you mentioned Baleba, but if you look at Mitoma, Brighton sort of farm him out to their Tony Bloom's Belgian club. He develops there, plays 2 seasons there. He comes to Brighton. Now he's all of a sudden one of the best wingers in the Prem. And there's a few cases like that with Brighton. I think you could probably say the same about City with the CFG model as well. So I think in terms of these wonder kids, that is probably what we're looking at the second club for. Scout someone who's playing in Ecuador, and then farm him out to Malaga on loan for 2 seasons, and all of a sudden he's ready to play for Liverpool. So I think that's what the second club model is all about when that comes to fruition. So that should help Liverpool get these wonder kids more.
Brilliant, Lewis. We weren't supposed to go throughout the team, but when it comes to contracts, transfers, I think you end up doing that. But thank you very much for your time, mate. And I'm sure it's not the last time that we see you on BNR. But thank you very much. And wait till the aggregators get a hold of this show, because we got absolutely everyone. But thanks for your time, mate. We never know, with things progressing, we could be back in 10 minutes talking about something else. Take care and have a nice day.
Thank you.